Hi everyone, welcome to Technology World Hub. My name is Anil. In this session, we are going to discuss what is serialization and what is deserialization in API, that is in REST API testing. Okay, this is also one of the key interview question you will face during your interview. Let's start this. Okay, let's discuss what is serialization in RestAssured. Serialization means converting a Java object to JSON or XML. So it can be sent as a request body in an API call. So what exactly it means? Converting one Java object, because in Java we create objects, right? That Java objects will convert it into JSON object, because in our REST assured we pass JSONs. Okay, JSON object or JSON is a request payload. So directly we cannot use Java object. So before using the Java object, first we need to convert it into JSON object, into JSON, basically JSON format, because REST API use JSON. So serialization is the way by which we can convert Java object to JSON object. Okay, that means serialization means converting a Java object into JSON object, so it can be sent as a request body in an API call. So through body we can send the request. Okay, REST assured automatically uses a Json or JSON under the hood to handle this conversion. So you don't need to manually convert to JSON using external libraries. Okay, no need to manually convert the JSON. REST assured automatically converts, because REST assured uses Json. That Json automatically converts Java object to JSON object. Okay, if you will see one example, let's say serialization example, serialization in RestAssured. First, create a POJO, that is plain object old Java object. POJO, plain old Java object. Let's create a POJO class. Let's say the class is user. Okay, and this class is having three variables: private int id, private string name, private string job. Okay, as it is a POJO class, so all the variables, let's say the variables are private. Then we can use constructor for initializing the variables. Okay, so public user is a constructor. In that we will pass int id, string name, string job. Okay, for initializing. Then we'll pass this dot id is equal to id, this dot name is equal to name, this dot job is equal to job. So we initialize all the variables in the constructor. Then we will use getter and setter, like public int get id, return id, public void set id, int id is equal to this dot id is equal to id, public string get name, return name. One second. Public string get name, return name, public void set name, string name, this dot name is equal to name. Public string get job, return job, public void set job, string job, this dot job is equal to job. Okay, and next, use REST assured to send the object, that is serialized automatically. So now will use RestAssured to send the object. Which object? POJO class object basically, which will serialize automatically. Let's see that. Let's say we have a class, public class, post request serialization. So we'll use post method for sending the request payload. Okay. Public class post request serialization. Public static void main string RGS. So user is equal to new user 101 Anil tester. Okay. So that means we are passing the ID as 101, name as Anil, and tester as, I mean to say, ID, name, and which one? Earlier one was job, right? So we are passing job as tester. Okay. Then we'll write down response is equal to rest assured dot given dot base URI. So we'll pass the base URI dot base path. We'll pass the path, base path. Then content type dot JSON. Okay. Then dot body is user. So how exactly we are passing the reference object of user class. Okay, understood? In the body we are passing the object of user class. There exactly what happens, like it will be serialized and it will convert it into JSON objects. Then log dot all dot when dot post dot then dot log dot all. So this is repeated actually, it's not required. Log all will be one time, that is enough. Okay, then we'll check the status code dot status code 201, because for successful post request the status code should be 201. Okay, then dot extract dot response. Then after that what we can do, we can fetch some value like system.out.println response.get status code. Okay, then system.out.println response.getBody.hString. It will, first one will return status code, second one will return full body of the JSON. Then system.out.println response.jsonpath.getString of name. It will return the name. Then system.out.println response.jsonpath.getInt of ID. Okay, it will return the ID value. So with that what happens, like internal what happens? RestAssured calls Jackson's object mapper behind the scenes. Okay, basically Jackson's object mapper. So object mapper, what is the utilization of object mapper? Basically object mapper will convert Java object into JSON object. Okay, so RestAssured calls Jackson's object mapper behind the scene. Basically RestAssured calls Jackson's object mapper for converting the Java object into JSON object. Okay, it automatically converts new user 101 Anil tester 2 into JSON. Okay, we pass the Java object, it is converted into JSON. Who? Jackson's object mapper. So it will convert it into ID 101, name Anil, job tester. Okay. Then, okay, that's all about serialization. Then what is deserialization? What is deserialization in RestAssured? So serialization was converting Java object to JSON object. Deserialization is the opposite. That means converting JSON object to Java object. Correct? Deserialization means converting JSON or XML response from an API back into a Java object. Okay? JSON response from an API back into a Java object. Understood? In other words, you are reading JSON data and turning it into Java POJO, that is plain old Java object, so that you can easily access its fields using getters instead of manually parsing JSON. Okay. After converting it into Java POJO, then what happens? Plain old Java objects, what will happen? So that you can easily access its fields. All the fields means, let's say variables. All the fields using getters instead of manually parsing JSON. Instead of manually parsing means instead of searching in the JSON, you can directly call one field using the getter method. Okay, so let's see this serial. So just if you will compare serialization versus deserialization. Serialization means what is the concept? Converts serialization. What it does? Converts Java object into JSON for sending a request. For sending a request payload, we cannot send Java object directly, right? So that's why we use serialization, so that one Java object will be converted into JSON object, which we can send in request. Basically, it will convert into a JSON. Java to JSON. Okay, serialization will make one Java object into JSON object. So Java to JSON. Deserialization convert JSON to Java object for reading API response. Okay, for reading API response, what happens? We require deserialization. So deserialization will convert JSON to Java object for reading API response. So JSON to Java. Okay, let's see one example. Let's say almost same example. Let's say RestAssured. So sorry, let's say one POJO class is there. Class user class, private int ID, private string name, private string job. Then there is a default constructor required for deserialization. Default constructor is required for deserialization. So public user class. Then parameter constructor, public user class for initializing the variables. Okay. So public user class int ID, string name, string job. This dot id is equal to id, this dot name is equal to name, this dot job is equal to job. Okay. Then one second. Then getters and setters. Public int get id, return id. Public void set id, int id. This dot id is equal to id. Public string get name, return name. Public void set name, string name. This dot name is equal to name. Then public string get job, return job. Public void set job, string job. This dot job is equal to job. Okay, getters and setters. Then after that, public class serialize, deserialize. Public static void main string args. User class user is equal to new user class 101 Anil tester. Then response is equal to RestAssured dot given dot base URI https:// JSONPlaceholder dot typecode.com. Then dot base path slash post. Then dot content type dot JSON dot body, that is user dot log dot all dot when dot post dot then dot log that is not required actually. One second. Okay, so dot status code 201, then extract dot response. Okay, then after that we'll print, let's say system dot out dot print status code response dot status code. System dot out dot print response body, response dot get body dot string. System dot out dot print name via JSON path. So if you want to fetch the name, then we'll use response.jsonpath.get string of name, so that it will return the name. Then after that, let's say we want to fetch the id, then we'll use response.jsonpath.get int of id, so that it will return the id value. Okay, same thing. How will deserialization convert JSON to Java object? How will do that? So we'll use user class. Let's say response user is equal to response dot edge user class dot class. Okay, that's how. User class response user, okay, is equal to response. See, this is the response we use. Response. Okay, response dot as Response is the reference of response. Okay, so we'll use user class response user. User class response user is equal to response dot response dot user class dot class. Then we will print the deserialized Java object fields. How? Response ID. So response user dot get ID, response user dot get name, response user dot get job. Because directly we can uh, get that right with the getter method. Okay, with the getter method we can get the value, get ID, get name, get job. Okay, that's all. No need to pass the JSON. Understood? Got it? Yes. So that's how we convert. User class, remember, user class response user is equal to response.args. Then we'll pass user class dot class. Okay, so it will be deserialized. Understood? Okay, perfect. Next, Java object serialization JSON. So with serialization, Java object will convert into JSON. User class user is equal to new user class 101 Anil tester. When serialized, RestAssured using Json sends this as JSON. Okay, after serialization, how it will go? It will go as ID is 101, name Anil, job tester. Okay, this way it will send. RestAssured will send as a JSON. Then deserialization, JSON deserialization Java object. Suppose the API returns ID 101, name Anil, job tester. Okay, you can convert what you. Okay, so in deserialization, what happens? JSON will convert it into Java object. This is the JSON. Suppose the API returns ID 101, name Anil, job tester. So you can convert, deserialize it back to a Java object. How? User class response user. Okay, user class response user is equal to response.as user class dot class. Okay, now you can easily access values like system.out.println response user dot get ID, get name, get job. Okay, anything you can access through getter methods. Okay, no need to pass the JSON. Why it's important in REST assured? When you test REST APIs, okay, when you test REST APIs, what you do? You serialize Java objects into JSON to send the data in requests. That is body, dot body object. So for sending the request in body, we cannot able to send Java objects. So we send the JSON. By converting the Java object into JSON, we can send a request payload. Okay. Then you deserialize JSON responses into Java objects to validate response fields easily. Okay. Then what you do? You deserialize JSON responses into Java objects to validate response fields easily. Okay. Understood? After deserialization, what happens? JSON will convert it to Java objects. Then we can, for validating field, we can just through the getter method, we can get the field value and we can validate the value easily. In short, serialization means Java object will convert it into JSON sending request for sending the request. Okay. Deserialization means JSON will convert it into Java object for reading response. Okay. Serialization for sending request and deserialization means reading response. Okay. That's how it is. Then for that we need to add Maven dependencies in the POM. Which is Maven dependencies? We need to add RestAssured and Json data bind. These two dependencies, Maven dependencies, we need to add in the Maven, in the pom.xml. Okay, that's about serialization and deserialization. So what I did, I just created one program also. Let's execute this and we'll see the result. Okay, if you will see here, let me show this one. What happens? Basically, it is a POJO class, user class, which is having three fields, that is int id, private string name, private string job, and it is one pub default constructor which is required for deserialization. Okay, then there is one parameterized constructor. So in that we are passing all the values, all the variables basically. So public user class, int id, string name, string job, and we are initializing all the values using the current reference, current class reference. This dot id is equal to id, this dot name is equal to name, this dot job is equal to job. Okay, then what we are doing, we are using getters and setters. Okay, for accessing, for setting and accessing the value. So public and get id, return id, public void set id, int id, this dot id is equal to id. So it is a POJO class, plain old Java object. Okay, so we are using getter and setter for accessing, for setting and accessing the value of private variables. Okay, so like that, public string, let's say get name, return name, public void get name, set name, string name, this dot name is equal to name, public string get job, return job, public void set job, string job, this dot job is equal to job, and public class serialize, deserialize, public static void main string RGS, user class, user is equal to new user class, ID 101, Anil tester, response is equal to RestAssured.given.base URI dot base path dot content type dot json dot body dot log dot all dot when dot post dot then dot log dot all dot status code 201 dot extract dot response, then print raw response details like system dot out dot println status code. How will fetch the status code? Plus response dot status code. How will get the response body? Plus response dot get body dot h string. How will get the name via JSON path? How will get the name? Basically, using JSON path, we'll get the name. Response dot JSON path dot get string of name. So we'll get the name. How will get the ID? Similarly, response dot JSON path dot get int of ID, because name is string, so it is a get string. ID is integer, so we'll use get int. Okay, that's how it is. Okay. Then deserialization. How will convert? Here, just remember where exactly our serialization happening. Serialization is happening here. Dot body. Whenever we are passing user object. So how internally it happens? Internally, RestAssured uses a Json. So Json's object mapper. So that Json's object mapper will convert this Java object into JSON. So the body will go with the JSON. Okay, basically we are sending on JSON through body. Okay, that's how it is. Content type dot JSON. Content type is content type dot JSON. Okay, and this is the base URI and this is the endpoint post. Okay, it is done. Then after that we are deserializing. We are converting JSON into Java objects. So how we are doing? User class response user is equal to response dot as user class dot class. So now this is converted into Java object. Okay, now through Java object we can get the getter method. Through getter method, we'll get the field, like for getting ID. So we'll use response user dot get ID. For getting name, response user dot get name. For job, response user dot get job. No need to parse the JSON. Okay, that's how it is. So let's run this. We'll see the result. Okay, just observe. Okay, absolutely working fine. See, initially what happens? Like we are sending one post request. Okay, content type application slash JSON. Then through body, see, automatically it is converting into Java object into JSON. So ID 101, name Anil, job tester. It is sending through body. Okay, we are passing the body as Java object, but Json, like RestAssured is using Jackson's object mapper, which is converting Java object into JSON. So the body is using JSON. Then after that, we are getting the response. See, 201 created, successfully it is created, means post request created. After that, if you will see, we are getting all the details. Okay, all the details we are getting. Then after that, what we are doing? We are fetching the details, like see, status code 201, response body, we are getting all the whole body, ID, name, job. Then name via JSON path, we are getting Anil, ID via JSON path 101. What we are using? Then we are using which one? Deserialization. In deserialization, we are using object, Java object, for getting the fields. So response user dot get ID. Sorry, we are getting the ID. Response user dot get name. We are getting the name Anil. Response job dot get job. That is tester. Okay, it is absolutely working fine. So that's how the serialization and deserialization helps in RestAssured and useful in RestAssured. Understood? That's all, guys. That's it for this session. Please like it, subscribe it, share with your friends and family. Thank you so much, guys.